Hi, everybody. Welcome to the final design public meeting for the Southside Signals project. Appreciate you all coming. 6:31. We can just get started. I'm Eric Stein. I am a project manager with the City of Pittsburgh's Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. Your project manager for this one as well. Also on the meeting from the city, I think Jeff Scalkin is on the meeting. He's the deputy director of DOMI. And we also have Mike Malik, who's a senior project manager. This is a city sponsored project, meaning that the city is managing the project with the help of Rania from CDR McGuire, but it's being paid for with federal funds, which is great. We are expecting to begin construction in November, but you won't notice that's kind of when the contractor gets under contract. You'll notice the real construction action beginning more in the early spring of 2022. So just a little housekeeping before we start. We are recording this meeting, so I believe it will be posted to YouTube. And for about a 2-week period afterwards, we'll be accepting comments and questions. Really, you can always email me with questions. But we'll be accepting comments for about 2 weeks from today. You can see my email address is on the page, as well as Damien's, our consultant project manager on this project. So we are recording. It'll be on YouTube is the plan. Please keep yourself on mute. And I just ask if you have any questions, Mike will be monitoring the chat box. So any questions you could type in the chat box, and if they're easy, yes or no's, he'll just be able to answer right away. Something more in depth, he'll store, and then when our Q&A session starts, he'll give them to Damien or I to answer. With that, I'll pass it along to Damien George from MS Consulting. He's our design consultant for this project. He's going to give you a more detailed look into the project. Thanks, Damien.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Good evening, everybody. As Eric said, my name is Damien George. I'm the design consultant project manager for the Southside Signals project. And we're going to talk about the 6 locations where you're going to see upgraded traffic signals. And this map here shows those 6 locations. You will see an outline of the intersections in red, which notes existing signalized intersections. And the blue outline is where we're going to be installing a new traffic signal. And these locations are they're scattered between Southside Flats, Southside Slopes, and Mount Oliver. Looking at the left of the screen, working left to right is Brownsville Road, starting at the intersection with Bousman Street, and then over where Brownsville turns into 18th at the intersection with Arlington Avenue. These 2 intersections are on the border with the city of Pittsburgh and Mount Oliver Borough. And we've been working closely with Mount Oliver Borough on the project, incorporating their design preferences and So they've been a close partner on this. Moving down the hill, down 18th Street, we meander our way down to the intersection with Mission and Pius Street. And then going around the curve, we end up at Josephine, where that's going to be a new traffic signal. In the last several years, due to sight distance issues, the intersection there has been restricted for Josephine Street to make lefts onto 18th with a traffic signal that will restore full movement to the intersection. And then moving down the hill into the flats, we end up at Jane Street and Sarah Street with improvements there. So I'm going to move ahead and we'll dig into each of these intersections and what we propose at these intersections with the design. So here we have the intersection of Brownsville with Bousman. There's several colors that we've highlighted here. The blue color is new sidewalk replacement. And that pink is just noting that there's a driveway there that we have to replace. And mostly the biggest thing you'll notice here are the new signals. Those are noted with these black shapes, whether it's a vertical pole, which is the dot, or a mast arm, which extends over the road, which is this longer shape. And all these signals will be painted gloss black. So they'll have a different appearance than that standard gray steel look. The vehicular signals will be fitted with back plates. It's kind of like a halo around it with a retroreflective tape on it. So it calls attention to the signal, especially a lot of times that's important when there's issues with glare and things of that nature. So these call more attention to traffic signals. We'll be including audible countdown pedestrian signals for pedestrians to know how much time is left as they're crossing the intersection. We are also introducing a northbound left turn phase for Brownsville Road. So if you're coming from the direction of Carrick, heading towards the south side, and you want to make a left turn on the Bousman Street, that will allow a advanced phase for that. And we're also going to separate out the phases, the Bousman Street phase and the Hayes Avenue phase. Currently, these run concurrent and it's confusing because of the alignment intersection. So we'll run these on their own phases. We're also going to introduce an all pedestrian phase. So when a PED activates the button, all the pedestrian indications will turn on for pedestrians to walk, and there will be no vehicular movement at the intersection. So that's referred to as an exclusive pedestrian phase. So that'll be provided this intersection. And the reason of that, again, is because of the alignment and the strange movements, acute angles at the intersection. We're also replacing ADA ramps. The dark gray that you see here, that's going to be a new pavement surface. So we're going to mill off the existing surface and put down a new top surface on that with asphalt. And you'll see new pavement markings, new signing. There'll be new lighting at the intersection. And we anticipate this work to occur during nighttime hours to lessen the impact to the businesses. And currently, for the Brownsville Road northbound approach, in the morning hours, there is a restriction for parking from 7 to 9:30. Well, what we're going to do is introduce an afternoon parking restriction from 3 to 6, so that it allows the approach to be a 2-lane approach, and then it allows usage of that left turn lane in the afternoon or early evening peak hour. So that's what that will allow. And we're going to move on to the next intersection. Oh, let me go back. I failed to mention that Mount Oliver, I mentioned the coordination of Mount Oliver. They have a streetscaping project coming through where they're going to be planting some trees. And we're working with them that we, as part of this project, will in front of the Rite Aid, so around here and here, or maybe, I'm sorry, maybe down here, we're going to introduce, we'll form out the tree pits for them. We won't put the tree pits in, but the concrete will accommodate the pit for the borough to install at a later date. So that's some of that close coordination we've been working with Mount Oliver on. Moving ahead to the intersection with Arlington Avenue, this similar to what I mentioned about has been the color. These blue colors indicate new sidewalk. Where you see areas of white is those were recently upgraded ADA ramps, so we found it not necessary to rip them out again because they have what we've referred to as a detectable warning surface, which are those little round dots that look like Legos. So that we found it wasn't necessary to have to rip those out since they're relatively new. And one thing I note here is we are changing the curb line at the southeast corner of Arlington with Brownsville. We're actually going to pull the curb line out, installing new curb, extending the sidewalk area so that when you're coming straight eastbound along Arlington, it'll line it kind of catches that eastbound movement to bring them into this part of Arlington. So kind of helping to kind of align that intersection a little better. So that's what this curb extension is doing. And it also allows a shorter crossing, road crossing for pedestrians. As I mentioned before, the gloss black signal pole color, the audible pedestrian signals. And then one thing to mention here is there's what we refer to as a leading pedestrian interval. It's basically a head start for pedestrians to cross the road. So they'll get the hand, the white hand indication that they can cross the road, and they'll be about 3 seconds before the adjacent vehicles get the green light. So, for example, if you're crossing, if you're here on the southeast corner crossing north, you'll get an indication 3 seconds before this movement gets a green light. So it gets you a little head start. So we're proposing that for all the crossings at this particular location. And again, updated lighting, pavement marking, new road surface outlined with this darker gray. And we anticipate nighttime work here. Okay, moving down the hill, this is 18th Street with Pius and Mission Street. So what we're doing here is, in addition to the sidewalk replacement and upgrading the ADA ramps, is and of course the new signals, is we're going to stripe out areas for where the parking is restricted, not just to define where parking cannot be, but also to define a better travel path for vehicles. And what that allows is it kind of gets cars to stay towards the middle, try to get them to stay more in the middle of the road, and then also to encourage the vehicles that park in this area to park on the street rather than on the sidewalk. Currently, since it's more of an open field, I think cars maybe feel they should park up on the sidewalk, but since we're going to introduce the striping and give a edge to the road to encourage people to park on the road and not on the sidewalk. So when you get further down the hill here, that's where this painted area is. That's what that allows. And same thing on this side going down the hill in the northbound direction. And so that's something different at this intersection. We are that pedestrian head crossing time, head start time I talked about. We're going to provide that for this crossing here of 18th Street. Now, since we're kind of out of the business district, up at the top of the hill, more in the residential district, we anticipate this to be daytime work, so that the residential area is less disturbed. Moving on down to Josephine. This intersection you're going to probably see a lot more, it's going to look a lot different than it does now, namely because of the traffic signal that's going to be installed, and also because of a new sidewalk that's going to be along the southbound lane here, as you can see in the blue, because there's a bus stop there, and it allows people to be able to cross from this side of 18th over to get on or off the bus. And we're also pulling this curb out. We're extending this curb to try to better tee in Josephine Street, as you see in the blue. And then the color green here shows the old sidewalk. That now, since we're bringing out the new sidewalk, there's going to be excess area that really won't be needed. So from a sidewalk usage, so we're going to remove that old sidewalk and even some old roadway pavement, and provide topsoil and seed it with a native wildflower mix. So introducing some green space. And there will be new lights as well. And that pedestrian head start time I mentioned earlier, that's going to be provided for all the crossings here. And then we assume daytime work here as well, because of the residential area. Now, all these design elements we're proposing are at the expense of some parking spaces. We are limiting 2 parking spaces here on that north edge of 18th Street, and then 1 here on South 18th Street, or heading southbound down the hill to accommodate some of the new sidewalk that we're putting in. So that's Josephine. So moving on. Now we're down in the flats. We're at Jane Street on the left, Sarah Street on the right. They're almost carbon copies of each other. They're both 4-leg intersections. All corners are getting the curb extensions. So what that'll do is it not only shortens the distance pedestrians have to cross, but also defines the parking areas. And the parking areas, essentially, based on state law, vehicles have to park a certain distance from the crosswalk of an intersection. And what these curb extensions do is enforce where that parking is not allowed. So so in reality, there are no lost parking spaces here, because by law, cars should not be parking in these areas anyway. So it just defines those parking areas better, and again, reduces the crossing distance. And like same treatments as the other intersections, gloss black poles, audible pedestrian signals, new ADA ramps, and then this is going to be daytime work as well. So I've walked you through the new design elements that each of these 6 locations will be getting. To do that involve, you're going to have the experience of the construction and maintaining the traffic during construction, whether it's vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic. And I might, and I'm just gonna walk you through a little bit how we think that's gonna work. So up at Brownsville and Bousman, this red area here indicates the sidewalk that would be under construction. Well, when that's under construction to maintain pedestrians, we propose a detour here in blue that will be signed for pedestrians, and it'll clearly tell them how to get around the work area so that no one gets stuck at the point of closure. And this now that I don't show every corner at this intersection, a scenario for every corner, but we do indicate in the contract documents that the contractor has to follow upon award of the contract on where they should detour pedestrians based on the corner that they're working on. So this shows you visually what this one location would look like under construction with the pedestrian detour. So moving over to Arlington Avenue, I talked about how we're going to be pulling the curb out here, and that's ripping out sidewalk, ripping out the curb. You have to close it to pedestrians. So what this shows is a detour in blue for that. And again, sorry, I jumped ahead, but again, if they do work at other corners that require a detour, then that's similarly that would be posted. We move on to Mission Street. This intersection, due to the offset intersection and due to the one crossing here, we had to provide. We're going to provide some temporary crossings on 18th, and then you can see in blue this will be the signed route, the official pedestrian detour route. And when we pick these routes, we try to keep them as short as we could, but then still make them accessible where there's curb ramps, or if there's an existing curb ramp, we're proposing a temporary curb ramp. And this just shows the southeast corner and then what a detour would look like for that for pedestrians. And then on the west side of the intersection, that's what that would look like. So it's like kind of like a puzzle. You work on one corner, you detour the other corner. And since I'm kind of in the middle of the geographically in the middle of the project, I might take some time to explain that there's a larger geographical distance between where we are here at Pius and Mission, and then at the top of the hill at Arlington. So we anticipate that when the contractor is doing work, that up on the top of the hill on Brownsville, that those two intersections would probably be worked on concurrently. And then when you get down here at Mission and Pius, and then moving on to Josephine and Jane and Sarah Street, that those would be worked on. Some work could happen at the same time, some work would be staggered, but you might see some sort of activity at all four of those, depending on the nature of the work. So that's kind of how we picture this happening. And the one thing that we have direction to the contractor is that they can only work on one corner at one intersection at a time, so that it allows the ability to detour the pedestrians. So moving down the hill, this shows Josephine Street, a detour route, what that would look when they do the big curb extension on the north part of the intersection, and then when they upgrade the sidewalk on this southeast corner. Moving on to Jane Street. This shows you each corner and basically the the proposed detour route as each corner is getting worked on. And only one corner will be worked on at a time, as I had mentioned, so that it allows that the shortest detour that we could propose. And then the same thing here at Sarah Street. Similarly, they can only work on one actively. When I say working on one corner, actually have it's where the sidewalk is torn up and it's inaccessible. There'll be other work they can do that might not require sidewalk closure, but when this sidewalk is actually closed, they can only do the one corner at a time at the intersection. So those are the that's a gist of the design features for the 6 intersections and how we envision the pedestrians to be able to get around, knowing that this is an important area for pedestrians, in addition to vehicles. Now, to do the curb extensions, we do anticipate flagging operations. So what that means is a flagger will control traffic, and there'll be alternating traffic where you have to take the turns. And then there will be a point in time where there will be no more than than a week detour for when we did do some of that work on Sarah and Jane Street. So advanced notification will be provided for that, and plenty of signing to notify people of when that's going to happen. So that's the gist of it. And I guess now we could take any questions through the chat.
And so far, we haven't had any questions, Damien and Eric. So I think we can open up to anyone in the chat room who'd like to unmute and ask a question.
I think we have a relatively small group. You can kind of fire at will. Anyone? A question?
There's a question in the chat. Mike, you're on mute.
Of course I am. I'm on if I take this, Eric and Damien.
Please, thank you.
So there are any incorporations of the Bike Plus plan will be handled outside of this project. However, we were very careful to make sure that design elements within this project wouldn't preclude bike infrastructure in the future, knowing the importance of this corridor and following our Bike Plus plan. And so I hope that reasoning answers your question, but we designed this with the idea in the future that there may be some type of bike facility in this location, and whatever we do here has to consider that. We have a question from Keith, which I'll probably direct to you, Damien, with regards to parking at Josephine and 18th Street.
Mm-hmm.
I'm specifically wondering if it's 3 spots or 2 spots that are going to be removed.
Yeah, let's see, 3 spots. So the 2 spot, it was always 2 spots that were at the north. I can cycle through to it. So these were always 2 spots that were to be removed. Now the one parking space here that's going to be removed, I apologize. I don't remember if that was in the previous design, but when we put the sidewalk in and when we looked at like Mike had mentioned, not precluding any future Bike Plus plan or anything like that when we looked at our design, it may have tweaked from the previous design. I'm sorry, I don't recall exactly, but but this is what we end up at with the total of 3. So. Okay, yeah, I see in the chat. Yeah, it's the one up the street. Yeah. So. Okay.
Happy to answer any other questions. If anyone, feel free to keep on typing or speak up.
I can pull up another sheet if someone needs to go back and look at one of the intersections. We're a captive audience for the questions. Okay, so I see a question about the expected completion date. So we we don't expect the contractor to actually begin construction till the spring. I'm sorry, till he'll be awarded the contract in November. But then there's a long lead time for signal poles. And then like Eric mentioned in his introduction, that you really won't see a lot of heavy activity till the spring. And we expect that to last through the summer. Should wrap up by the fall of next year. So about a year from beginning to end by the time you do the punch list items and things like that.
I see there's a question about the sidewalk being in, enforcement to keep vehicles from parking on the sidewalk on 18th Street. I don't know if anyone here can speak to enforcement, but we did put a lot of intent into the bump outs, the painted bump outs on Mission Street and Pius Street. Damien, if you wanted to go into more detail there.
Yeah, so the goal of that is, I think, I mean, having driven down here and having parked down here myself, I think that when, you know, with cars tend to want to use, when they see extra pavement, they tend to want to use that extra pavement. And I think when people park there, they think, oh, well, these cars, they have this whole lane to use. I don't feel comfortable parking fully on the street. And the goal with these painted, pulling this paint out is to push people more towards the middle as they're getting towards the intersection, through the intersection, and then continuing past that, so that when cars are on the street here and not on the sidewalk, it'll better define that area.
So us in the department, we have seen some success with these painted bump outs, encouraging drivers to park on the street instead of the sidewalk. So that's our hope here as well.
Any other questions? Let's see any in the chat.
Okay. maybe enough silence or let's move on. We can close it out. Thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate you taking the time in the evening to join us. Again, Damien, actually, if you could, well, my email address was on that first slide. If you have any questions, I don't know if it might not be in this presentation, so it's okay, but actually, I'll just type in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, I don't think I had it on this.
That's all right, I'll just type it.
Yeah.
Type it in the chat. Here's my email address. If you have any questions following in the next couple of weeks, questions or comments next couple of weeks, questions about the project anytime, especially in construction, please don't hesitate to reach out. More than happy to answer any questions and any concerns or pass anything along to Damien. Will also be on during construction, and in constant communication with him and the contractor eventually. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask any questions or voice any concerns. This will be posted, and I believe we're going to have the presentation up on the project website, so in the same place that the fact sheet is on Domi's current projects website. We'll have this presentation as well. So thank you for coming again. Great questions. Hoping to see you all again soon. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Have a good night.